What if everything people thought they knew about the royal story was just the version they were allowed to see, and the real version locked away, hidden, protected, just slipped through the cracks in the most explosive way possible? Because right now, behind closed palace doors, whispers are turning into something much darker, something far more dangerous, and at the center of it all is one word that refuses to go away: nah.
All Harry and Meghan need to do is prove to us that she popped those babies out. And that's all they need to do. And if they don't, it is unfair on the children. It's also unfair on the royal family.
People think her kids are fake. They think they're AI.
The whole description she does of the Portland hospital, the birth, that was completely fabricated. We all know.
And suddenly, everything feels different. What used to be dismissed as background noise, as harmless gossip, is now morphing into something that insiders are calling a full-blown crisis moment. The kind of moment that doesn't just shake headlines, but threatens to unravel carefully constructed narratives piece by piece. Because when Tom Bauer dropped his latest wave of claims, it wasn't just another controversial statement, it was a spark. And now, that spark, it's allegedly ignited something no one saw coming. A so-called private nah report that people behind the scenes are whispering about, passing between conversations like a dangerous secret that was never meant to leave the room. And here's where it gets even more intense. Because according to what's being murmured in quiet circles, this report didn't just appear randomly. No, it surfaced at the worst possible moment, right when pressure was already building, right when questions were already multiplying, right when silence was already becoming louder than any statement ever could be. And the reaction? Not calm, not control, but something far more telling. Shock, confusion, and most of all, a sense that something had slipped out of control.
This scandal comes as no surprise. Speculation about the children has been simmering for years.
If she hasn't had the children herself, or Harry hadn't been involved, then they can't be in the royal line. They have to have royal blood, those little ones. Without that, there's no chance of them becoming a member of the royal family.
This case about whether you think the birth was real, whether you think there was a surrogate, whether you think Meghan was wearing a moon bum. The fact is, Harry and Meghan lied. Buckingham Palace lied on their behalf. There was a complete cover-up over the birth of Prince Albert.
So she wasn't even pregnant. So it's very weird. And Harry it was said to Harry, not to her. I mean, she just came.
Because suddenly, people aren't just watching anymore. They're digging. They're connecting dots. They're revisiting moments that once seemed insignificant but now feel loaded with meaning. Old photos, old timelines, old statements. Everything is being pulled back into the spotlight, re-examined under a microscope that refuses to blink. And what they're finding, or what they believe they're finding, is raising questions that refuse to settle down. And then comes the part that insiders can't stop talking about. The reaction behind palace doors. Because while the public sees silence, what's allegedly happening privately paints a completely different picture. A picture of tension so thick it's almost suffocating. A picture of conversations that stop the moment someone else walks into the room. A picture of one man, Prince Harry, caught in the middle of something he may not have seen coming at all. Blindsided. That's the word being used. Blindsided by the speed. Blindsided by the scale. And most of all, blindsided by the possibility that something this sensitive could be spiraling without warning. Because if there really is a report, if there really is something being quietly discussed, then the question isn't just what it says, the question is why now? Why surface it now when everything is already so fragile?
Harry and Meghan Markle's surrogacy scandal has entered the mainstream media domain.
They need to prove that those children, Meghan and Harry, are not entitled to privacy in this matter. And their privacy is trumped by our right to know that no bastard is going to sit on the throne of this country.
Like, why lie? It was just so truly bizarre.
Meghan is using everything for publicity and not really truly there. We know how she treats her family.
And this is where the pressure starts to feel unbearable, because the more questions rise, the more silence stretches, the louder everything becomes. People aren't just asking simple questions anymore. They're asking the kind of questions that cut straight to the core, the kind that don't fade, the kind that demand answers whether anyone is ready to give them or not. But here's the twist that's making this situation even more volatile. Meghan Markle. Because while the noise grows louder, while speculation spreads like wildfire, her response, or lack of it, is becoming a story of its own. No emotional reactions, no public denials, no visible attempts to engage, just a controlled, almost surgical silence that some are calling strategic and others are calling suspicious.
This crisis won't die down until the irrefutable truth comes out.
Living a life that she's winning and she's doing all these great things, but the reality is not that.
Absolutely. What we really are seeing is that both of them, having posed as the victim for so long, are really the aggressor.
Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, is marking her daughter Lilibeth's 4th birthday by sharing some personal photographs. A rare sighting of a little girl seen in this picture with her father, Prince Harry, and now her mom. The child's face is partially covered as the royal couple is known to fiercely guard the privacy of their 2 children. On Instagram, Meghan wrote, "Happy birthday to our beautiful girl. 4 years ago today, she came into our lives, and the day is brighter and better because
in moments like this, silence doesn't calm things down. It does the opposite. It amplifies, it fuels, it invites more speculation, more theories, more voices stepping in to fill the gaps. And right now, those gaps are wide open. And then comes the detail that people can't ignore: the distance, the absence, the noticeable lack of visible connection that suddenly feels significant. Because when people compare what they see, what's been shown publicly, what's been shared, what's been withheld, it creates a contrast that's hard to explain away. And that contrast, it's feeding the narrative, pushing it forward, making it impossible to contain. And now, behind the scenes, the situation is allegedly shifting from reactive to urgent. Because if there is even a possibility that something private is becoming public, then every move matters. Every decision matters. Every second of silence matters. Legal teams, advisors, quiet discussions happening far from cameras, far from headlines, but very much shaping what comes next, and still no direct response, which brings everything back to the same question that keeps echoing louder with each passing moment. If there's nothing to hide, why not say something? Why let the speculation grow? Why let the narrative spiral? Because right now, the silence isn't just silence anymore. It's a signal that people are reading, interpreting, analyzing from every possible angle. And with each interpretation, the story grows bigger, heavier, harder to control. And the most unsettling part, this doesn't feel like it's slowing down. It feels like it's building, like something is approaching a breaking point that no one can fully predict. So the real question isn't just about the report anymore. It's about what happens next. What happens when pressure reaches its peak? What happens when silence can't hold back the noise any longer? What happens when the truth, whatever version of it exists, finally steps into the light? Because if this situation keeps moving in the direction it's heading, it won't just be a headline. It could become something much bigger. And just when it feels like the situation couldn't possibly get any heavier, something shifts again. Not loudly, not publicly, but in that quiet, almost invisible way that makes everything even more unsettling. Because behind the scenes, the conversation is no longer just about rumors or speculation. It's about control, who has it, who's losing it, and who's desperately trying to regain it before things spiral beyond repair. What makes this even more intense is the contrast between what's happening publicly and what's believed to be happening privately. Because while the outside world sees headlines and speculation, the inside is being described as tense, heavy, almost frozen in moments where decisions carry consequences that could ripple far beyond just one story. Conversations that don't have clear answers, strategies that don't guarantee control, and a growing realization that once a narrative reaches this level, it doesn't simply disappear, it evolves. And then there's Meghan Markle, whose silence is no longer just a reaction, it's becoming a central piece of the entire situation. Because people aren't just asking what's being said anymore, they're asking why nothing is being said in response, why there's no direct confrontation, no clear dismissal, no attempt to shut it down in a way that leaves no room for interpretation. Instead, what's being seen is a controlled approach, one that feels calculated, one that suggests every move is being measured, weighed, and executed with precision. But in a situation like this, precision doesn't always equal perception, and perception is what's driving everything right now. Because perception is where the real shift is happening. The image that once felt stable, carefully built through interviews, appearances, and a consistent narrative is now being viewed through a completely different lens. One where every unanswered question becomes a crack, every silence becomes a signal, and every delay becomes a reason for more speculation. And once that shift begins, once people start questioning instead of accepting, it becomes incredibly difficult to reverse. And that's exactly what's happening. People aren't just observing anymore, they're participating. They're forming conclusions, sharing theories, pulling in past moments, and connecting them to present claims in ways that create a sense of continuity, even if that continuity is built on assumptions. Old interviews are being replayed with new interpretations. Old decisions are being reframed with new meaning. And suddenly, everything that once felt clear is being questioned in ways that make the entire story feel unstable. At the same time, attention is drifting towards something else that feels just as significant: the silence of the royal family itself. Because while the focus remains on Harry and Meghan, the absence of any visible response from within the institution is being noticed more than ever. And that absence is creating its own wave of speculation. Is it deliberate? Is it strategic? Or is it simply a decision to stay removed from something that could escalate further if acknowledged? No one knows. And that uncertainty is exactly what keeps the conversation alive. And then comes the deeper layer, the one that's starting to take shape beneath everything else. The idea that this situation isn't just about one claim or one report, but about something much larger, something tied to tradition, to structure, to the way stories are told and maintained within a system that relies heavily on continuity and perception. Because when questions begin to touch on those areas, even indirectly, they carry a different kind of weight, a weight that doesn't fade easily. That's why this feels different. That's why it feels heavier. Because it's no longer just about what's true or what's not, it's about what people believe, what they're starting to believe, and how those beliefs are shaping the narrative in real time. And once belief takes hold, once it spreads, it becomes incredibly difficult to contain, especially when there's no clear, definitive moment that shuts it down. And right now, that moment hasn't come. Instead, what's building is something far more unpredictable. A situation where every day without a response adds another layer, another question, another reason for people to keep watching, to keep speculating, to keep pushing the story forward even when there are no new facts, because the absence of facts itself becomes part of the narrative. And that's where things become dangerous, because when a story is driven by interpretation rather than confirmation, it can move in directions no one can fully control. And still, the same question lingers louder than ever, echoing through every discussion, every headline, every conversation that refuses to move on. If there's nothing there, why does it feel like everything is being held back? Why does it feel like something is waiting, something unresolved, something that hasn't been addressed in a way that puts it to rest completely? Because until that happens, until there's a moment of clarity that cuts through the noise, this story doesn't end. It evolves, it expands, it pulls more people in, more voices, more interpretations, until it becomes something much bigger than where it started. And that's exactly where things stand right now. Not at a conclusion, not at a resolution, but at a point where everything feels like it's on the edge of something. Something that could either settle everything or push it even further into territory no one is prepared for. Because if this alleged denial report is nothing, then silence will eventually collapse under its own weight. But if it's something, anything at all, then what's happening now might just be the beginning of a much larger unraveling. And the most unsettling part, no one knows which direction it's going to take. Not yet. It's going to take. Not yet. It's going to take. Not yet.